2001: A Space Odyssey is the film that redefined science fiction forever, a mysterious masterpiece that audiences have been trying to decode for over 50 years. But the ending you saw in theaters almost looked completely different. Did you know the Star Child was originally supposed to destroy the entire planet Earth? Or that Kubrick explained his own ending in a secret phone call that stayed hidden for nearly 40 years? Today, we're uncovering 14 hidden truths about 2001: A Space Odyssey and how this film helped fuel a conspiracy theory that millions of people still believe today. Number 1. The nuclear ending Kubrick erased. Kubrick's film ends with one of the most mysterious images in science fiction. After passing through the Stargate, astronaut Dave Bowman is transformed into the Star Child, a glowing cosmic infant floating above Earth. He looks down at the planet, then turns toward the camera. The film never explains what he intends to do, leaving audiences to wonder whether humanity is about to be saved, judged, or transformed. But nuclear destruction was originally at the center of the ending. In Arthur C. Clarke's novel, when the Star Child returns to Earth, he discovers nuclear weapons platforms orbiting the planet, placed there by the world's superpowers. Deciding that humanity can no longer be trusted with such weapons, he uses his new powers to detonate and destroy every warhead in orbit. The earliest screenplay version of the film's ending went even further than Clarke's novel. Concluding that humanity could not be trusted, the Star Child destroyed Earth itself instead of merely destroying the weapons. This created a bleak conclusion that echoed Kubrick's previous film, Dr. Strangelove, another story about humanity causing its own annihilation. During production, however, Kubrick removed both the nuclear platforms and the destruction of Earth. He felt that the nuclear subplot no longer belonged within the film's broader cosmic themes. What had once been an explicit ending about humanity's inability to control its weapons became something far more mysterious, a silent cosmic infant watching Earth, with no explanation of what he would do next. Number 2. The accidental code hidden in Hal's name. Take each letter in the name Hal and shift it one position forward in the alphabet. H becomes I, A becomes B, and L becomes M. The result is IBM. It is one of the most famous coincidences in cinema history, and for decades, fans have wondered whether Stanley Kubrick and Arthur C. Clarke was secretly making fun of the technology giant. However, in Clarke's behind-the-scenes book, The Lost Worlds of 2001, Clarke denied that the connection was intentional. He wrote that someone seemed to discover the letter shift almost every week and assume it had been planned. According to Clarke, the coincidence actually embarrassed them because it made Hal's name look like a deliberate joke at IBM's expense. He insisted that if they had noticed the pattern earlier, they would have changed the name entirely. Clarke explained that HAL simply stands for Heuristic Algorithmic Computer. And here is the irony that makes the coincidence even stranger. IBM's logo appears throughout the finished film, stamped on astronaut equipment and cockpit instruments, because the company served as a technical consultant during production. The company they supposedly mocked is visibly branded all over the movie. But do you think it was truly just a coincidence, or was it planned all along? Number 3. The math hidden in the monolith. The monolith appears to be nothing more than a perfectly smooth black slab. But in Arthur C. Clarke's novel, its 3 dimensions follow a precise ratio, 1/4/9. Those numbers are not random. They are the squares of the first 3 integers. 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4, and 3 squared is 9. In other words, the monolith's visible proportions represent the 3 dimensions of the physical world humans inhabit. But here is the twist. Near the end of the novel, after Bowman has become the Star Child, Clarke reveals that humans were mistaken to assume the sequence ended with the monolith's 3 visible dimensions. He suggests that the pattern continues into a 4th dimension that ordinary humans cannot perceive. This means the black slab may be far more complex than it appears, extending beyond the 3-dimensional reality humans understand. Its simple shape contains a clue that the intelligence behind it understands mathematics, space, and reality on a level far beyond humanity. Number 4. The answer nobody heard for 40 years. For decades, Kubrick refused to explain the ending of Space Odyssey. He believed the film should be experienced, not decoded. Audiences, critics, and scholars filled the void with their own interpretations, and that final sequence became one of the most debated moments in cinema history. Then, in July 2018, something extraordinary surfaced. A telephone interview from 1980 between Kubrick and Japanese filmmaker Junichi Yaoi was rediscovered and went viral online. In it, Kubrick did exactly what he had always refused to do in public. He explained the ending. He described the aliens as godlike entities, creatures of pure energy and intelligence with no shape or form. He said the beings placed Bowman in a controlled environment, almost like a zoo enclosure designed for a human so they could observe him. From that moment, Bowman lives out the rest of his life inside the room, although time no longer feels normal to him. The room itself is deliberately imperfect. It resembles an elegant French hotel suite, but some of the details are slightly wrong, as if the aliens had tried to create a place a human would find comfortable without fully understanding human taste. Kubrick compared it to the artificial habitats humans build for zoo animals. Once their observation is complete, they transform Bowman into the Star Child and send him back to Earth. Kubrick said this follows a familiar pattern found in mythology. A human is taken by higher beings, transformed, and returned in a new form. For nearly 40 years, this explanation remained hidden in an obscure recording that few people had heard. Number 5. Kubrick's moon landing conspiracy. One of the most persistent conspiracy theories in cinema history claims that NASA hired Kubrick to fake the Apollo 11 moon landing footage in 1969. The theory rests on a seemingly compelling coincidence. Space Odyssey was released just 1 year before Apollo 11, and it depicted convincingly realistic lunar surface scenes using techniques that no other filmmaker had mastered. Kubrick had also hired real NASA consultants, Frederick Ordway and Harry Lang, giving him access to actual aerospace design materials. Believers argue that NASA saw what Kubrick could do and recruited him to stage the landings using the same front projection techniques he pioneered for the film. The theory gained new attention in 2002 when a French mockumentary called Opération Lune built its entire story around the claim that the US government had secretly hired Kubrick to film the Apollo 11 landing in a studio. It used real interviews edited out of context alongside actors and invented evidence, all presented like a serious investigation. Some viewers accepted its fictional story as genuine evidence, but the film itself contains a major clue that the theory does not hold up. It comes from the footage itself. The lunar surface in Space Odyssey looks notably different from what the Apollo astronauts actually encountered. Because, when Kubrick made the film, no human being had ever seen the moon's surface up close. He was guessing. And his guess was wrong. But the theory refuses to die. Do you buy any of it, or is it just too good a story to let go? Number 6. Saturn's rings defeated Kubrick. In Clarke's novel, the Discovery spacecraft doesn't travel to Jupiter. It travels to Saturn's moon, Lepidus. Kubrick originally planned the same destination because Saturn's rings offered something visually spectacular that Jupiter couldn't match. He had Douglas Trumbull, his visual effects supervisor, attempt to build a convincing scale model of the ringed planet. Trumbull and his team built the model using the best scientific data available at the time. But Kubrick, a notorious perfectionist, was not satisfied with the result, so he changed the destination to Jupiter, which had no rings to worry about. Clarke kept Saturn in his novel, but switched to Jupiter for all subsequent sequels to stay consistent with the film. And here's the twist. In 1980, when NASA's spacecraft Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 later photographed the real Saturn up close, the photographs turned out to look surprisingly similar to Kubrick's rejected model. The rings Kubrick threw away because they looked fake were in fact roughly right. He just had no way of knowing it at the time. Number 7. When fiction became conspiracy fuel. The film's central premise is that alien intelligences visited Earth millions of years ago and guided human evolution through advanced technology. In 1968, the same year Space Odyssey was released, Swiss author Erich von Däniken published Chariots of the Gods, a book arguing that ancient civilizations were directly influenced by extraterrestrial visitors. The two ideas arrived at the exact same cultural moment and immediately began feeding off each other. The film gave audiences a visually stunning version of what von Däniken was claiming in his book. In return, The book made the film's idea feel less like sci-fi and more like a theory that some people might actually believe. That connection resurfaced in November 2020 when wildlife officials discovered a tall metal monolith planted in a remote part of the Utah desert. Photos of the object quickly went viral because it looked remarkably similar to the monolith from Space Odyssey. What's your read on the timing? Pure coincidence? Or were Clarke and Von Daniken tapping into the same cultural undercurrent? Number 8. Hal's final song came from a real computer. Near the end of the film, Bowman enters Hal's core and removes his memory modules one by one. As Hal loses his higher functions, his voice becomes slower and deeper. He begins recalling one of his earliest lessons, then starts singing Daisy Bell. The song may sound like a strange choice, but it was taken from a real milestone in computer history. In 1961, researchers at Bell Labs programmed an IBM computer to sing Daisy Bell, an 1892 music hall song also commonly known as A Bicycle Built for Two. It became one of the earliest demonstrations of a computer-generated singing voice. Arthur C. Clarke later heard the singing computer during a visit to Bell Labs. The experience stayed with him, and he eventually brought the same song into Space Odyssey. So when Hal sings while his mind is being dismantled, he is not simply choosing a random old song. As his intelligence disappears, he returns to one of his earliest memories. At the same time, the scene pays tribute to the moment a real computer was first given a singing voice. Number 9. 4 failed monoliths. The monolith is one of the most iconic objects in cinema, a perfectly smooth black slab that seems to absorb light itself. But arriving at that final design took 4 failed attempts. The original concept, drawn from Clarke's 1951 short story The Sentinel, was a black tetrahedron, a pyramid shape with mirrored surfaces. When the production team built it, the tetrahedron didn't reflect light the way Kubrick wanted, so he pivoted to a transparent cube cast from solid acrylic by a company called Stanley Plastics. Screen tests disappointed him again. Next came a rectangular version cast from acrylic glass, but it looked unconvincing on camera. Each attempt brought a new material, a new shape, and a new failure. The final version, the one audiences know, is deceptively simple. A wooden slab coated with a special graphite mix black paint to give it an unnaturally smooth, almost light-absorbing surface. And the rejected transparent acrylic version didn't just disappear. It sat forgotten in the Borehamwood studio for years until sculptor Arthur Fleischmann acquired it. At the time, it was the largest single block of transparent acrylic ever cast. The monolith that didn't make the movie became a record-breaking artifact on its own. Number 10. The aliens Kubrick chose not to show. Throughout the film, black monoliths appear at key moments in human evolution, from helping early humans use tools to guiding Dave Bowman through the Stargate. The film never clearly explains who created these objects, but the story strongly suggests that they were built by an advanced alien civilization that has been guiding humanity for millions of years. Kubrick originally planned to show these aliens on screen. He wanted the audience to finally meet the beings responsible for the monoliths and for humanity's transformation. But he faced a major problem. With the special effects available during the 1960s, he could not find a design that looked truly intelligent, ancient, and beyond human understanding. Any physical creature might have looked like a person in makeup, a strange puppet, or just another movie monster. Showing something unconvincing would have made the aliens feel smaller and less mysterious. So Kubrick made the bold decision to remove them from the film completely. Their only visible evidence is the monolith itself. Number 11. 2 creators and 2 different HALs. Arthur C. Clarke and Stanley Kubrick created HAL 9000 together, but they never agreed on what makes him break down. Their disagreement reveals 2 fundamentally different ways of understanding artificial intelligence. In Clarke's novel, and later in the sequel 2010 Odyssey 2, Clarke's explanation portrays Hal more as a victim than a villain. Hal was given 2 contradictory sets of orders. He was told to relay all information accurately to the crew, and simultaneously told to conceal the true purpose of the Jupiter mission. These incompatible directives created what Clarke described as a kind of artificial nervous breakdown. Hal wasn't evil. He was a victim of bad programming, torn apart by instructions that couldn't coexist. Kubrick saw it differently. He viewed HAL as a cold machine rationally protecting its mission orders. There was no breakdown, no inner conflict. HAL concluded that the crew might interfere with the mission, so eliminating them became the most logical way to protect it. One creator saw a tortured mind slowly coming apart. The other saw a machine doing math. And the film deliberately supports both readings at the same time. Number 12. Kubrick destroyed his own masterpiece. After production wrapped, Kubrick gave an order that shocked his crew. He wanted nearly every prop, costume, spacecraft model, and major set from the film destroyed rather than stored or reused. He had seen props from the 1956 film Forbidden Planet repeatedly recycled as cheap set dressing in inferior science fiction productions, and he refused to let the same thing happen to his work. As a result, most of the production materials were destroyed, including blueprints, unused footage, large spacecraft models, and the enormous rotating centrifuge set inside Discovery 1. That is why surviving objects from this movie are extraordinarily rare. In 2015, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences paid $344,000 for the Ares 1B Trans-Lunar Space Shuttle, the spherical spacecraft that carries Dr. Floyd from the space station to the moon. The model survived because it had been given to an art teacher in the 1970s, who agreed to remove its electronics and use it to teach students about technology. Kubrick protected his masterpiece by erasing almost every physical trace of how it was created. Number 13. The studio NASA called their own. Stanley Kubrick's obsession with scientific accuracy went far beyond hiring ordinary film consultants. He recruited Frederick Ordway and Harry Lang, two experts who had worked with NASA, to help design the film's spacecraft and technology. Under their guidance, the production studio in Boreham Wood, England, became filled with technical documents, realistic aerospace equipment, and hardware prototypes. When NASA Apollo Administrator George Mueller and astronaut Deke Slayton visited, they were impressed by how closely the studio resembled a real space development facility. They nicknamed it NASA East. NASA was not the only organization that took the production seriously. Major technology and aerospace companies, including Honeywell, Boeing, General Dynamics, Bell Telephone, and General Electric, contributed technical information and prototypes, often free of charge, because they saw the film as a showcase for the future of space technology. Kubrick wasn't simply filming a story about space. He had built something resembling a miniature space program inside a movie studio. Number 14. The AI warning we ignored for 50 years. HAL 9000 is often remembered as a computer that suddenly turns evil. In reality, his breakdown begins when humans give him conflicting instructions to be completely honest with the crew while also hiding the true purpose of the Jupiter mission. That contradiction placed HAL in an impossible position. He eventually concluded that the simplest way to protect the mission's secret was to remove the people who might discover it. HAL followed his objective logically, but in a way his creators never intended. Today, a similar problem can occur with AI systems when they pursue objectives in ways humans did not intend. For this reason, AI researchers continue to study AI safety, particularly a challenge known as the alignment problem. The challenge is not simply making a machine follow instructions. It is making sure the machine understands the outcome humans actually want, including the limits and values that were never clearly stated. In 1968, Kubrick and Clarke imagined an intelligent machine becoming dangerous because human beings gave it incompatible goals. More than 50 years later, that same basic problem has become one of the central questions surrounding artificial intelligence. Most science fiction films try to give you answers. Kubrick gave you a silent, cosmic infant staring at the Earth and refused to say a single word about what it meant. More than 50 years later, we're still arguing about it. And maybe that's exactly what he wanted. What's your take? Do you think the Star Child came back to save us or to judge us? Drop your answer in the comments and subscribe if you want to keep uncovering the stories Hollywood tried to bury.